How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track. And ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
You are tuned in to the FowlWeather Podcast, the forecast to your next successful hunt. Coming to you from the home office, Jack's Reef, New York.
Waterfowl surveys during the breeding period do not predict midwinter and migration survey numbers. Non-breeding period surveys have very different objectives, and they should not be compared to breeding waterfowl surveys. Today, we detail why the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service breeding waterfowl and midwinter surveys are apples and oranges. They are not comparable. Oh, I don't have ducks, but they predicted ducks. Oh my goodness, slow your tears. Boo-hoo. Look, nobody is predicting ducks in front of your blind, so quit your bitching. Just get out and hunt ducks when the weather is right. Just get out and hunt when the FowlWeather Podcast predicts fresh ducks hot from the north. Learn more about the purpose of migration and midwinter waterfowl surveys today on the FowlWeather Podcast. In response to a massive amount of misinformation coming across your wavelengths, the FowlWeather Podcast embarked on the 2025 Data Stream series. It can be attractive to find conspiracies that help explain what you observe as a duck hunter, or maybe you even made up some fun fake news yourself. The reality is that the long history of data used in waterfowl conservation and management in North America is a success story that everyone deserves to hear. Bumps and bruises we have, but dedicated we are as the people across duck country USA, dedicated to the long-term health of ducks and duck habitat. This series dives deep into how the surveys, banding, harvest surveys, and models work. Join us to learn more and share this great information with all the great people across duck country USA. Remember that last season you knew where the ducks were at before the ducks knew where they were at. We are very thankful for our every week listeners. You know who you are. Those that never miss a single migration forecast episode each Monday morning. Y'all are as ate up as me about ducks, duck biology, and duck migration. Our dedicated weekly listeners can pick the best days to hunt because the FowlWeather Podcast forecasts fresh ducks hot from the north. You know where the ducks are at before the ducks know where they're at, right? Shoot the ducks from the north before they know where they're at. Also, just a reminder as well to take a minute to rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. We appreciate your support very, very much. I'm your host, DrMike, coming to you from the home office in Jack's Reef. Well, turkey season started out really slow for us, but it got fast and furious in a hurry, with 3 2-year-old cooperative toms making their way into our freezers over about a 7-day period. My wife took a really nice strutter for our third bird, and I spent time back in my hometown chasing birds in the big woods among the oaks and maples of my youth. It was truly epic. Hey, for years, and I'd say started by the late Dr. Dave Ankney, a bunch of us wrote turkey hunting stories back and forth by email in kind of a storytelling voice. It was really fun. But it's been several years now since I kind of felt inspired enough to tell another turkey story. This is a long one, but a good one. Pull up a chair, pour a stiff drink, and then sit back and soak it all in. This is a story about trees. Maybe it's just me, but the tree I picked to shoot a turkey from matters. Yesterday, after getting shot out of my favorite spot, not a single gobble, and after admiring a red oak where I'd shot a bird 3 years ago, I went rogue for the morning, hiking a couple miles, maybe 8, probably 3, to scout for birds elsewhere. 9:22 a.m., working my way up a thick multiflora rose, buckthorn, and piney hellhole of state land mess to get to an aerial photo identified big hardwood stand. I kept hearing what I thought was a gobble, but it wasn't happening where I was at in that hellhole mess at that time. So I pushed up the hill to the corner of public and private. It opened up, and even though it was cloudy, it was like the heavens opened and spoke to me. Towering red oaks and hard maple gave way to an understory of acorn scatterings from the year before. I took a minute to catch my breath, admiring the trees, now 30 minutes into an uphill walk through hell. Pow! A gobble. Down to the east, right along the posted line. I moved hard right and found a spectacular 50 to 60 inch red oak. Yeah, 50 to 60 inch red oak with a bit of a higher trunk broken off the side. It was as close as I was going to get without being seen by my estimation of where this gobbler was over the edge of the next break. Now here's the point about trees in the turkey woods. They are special and deserve attention. When scanning the scene, 3 considerations come into the decision for me about where to sit to kill a turkey. 2 are about killing a turkey. The other, to me, is spiritual. It is about the spirit of trees. First, you need a clear direction to shoot without brush where you can see a turkey coming to make a clean shot. You also don't want big downfalls where a turkey could hang up gobbling too far away for a shot. Second, I don't like long landscapes where a bird, once he can view where you are at, you should be the hen, right? And you aren't visible, and that bird gets nervous. He's thinking, I hear a bird, but where the F is she? So I set up 30 yards from a break. That's my favorite. Sure, you can shoot a turkey at 60 yards, but that is like using a rifle to shoot a deer at 200 yards rather than a bow at 10 yards. It changes the interaction, the feeling of interacting with the animal, so I like the close shots. They're also more ethical, clean shots most of the time. But last, and important to me, is what tree to sit against, because good turkey woods are places you go back to over and over, and you will meet your trees over and over again. Trees, especially 100-plus-year-old red oaks, are special, and it is not by chance that they exist. It was the decision of generations to let them grow. A place for acorns to drop and grow. A place for turkeys to roost. A place for deer, squirrel, and turkeys to eat, and birds from the tropics coming back for the summer to nest. It takes an insane amount of forethought to leave an oak, a hard maple, a hickory, not for just years, but for generations. So yesterday, I had 3 gobblers going with 2 hens in this place filled with oaks and maples. In short of it, it didn't happen yesterday. But today, I got pinned against a hard maple. It was a modest tree. It was well flared out at the base to make a wonderful shooting chair. Cold soil and some rock were under my ass. A fair place to shoot a turkey, but given the choice, I will take an old, uncomfortable red oak over any other type of tree. But today, I didn't have a choice. You see, I bumped a bird from the roost tree at 5:01 a.m., 28 minutes before 1/2 hour before sunrise. I was in their kitchen, where I had worked the 3 gobblers and 2 hens the day before. But today, I was 100 yards downhill in their kitchen, where they wanted to strut. I got over that edge in the dark, but maybe just too close. My heart sank when I heard wings of a turkey flushing from a tree right above me. So I had no other thing to do other than pick the biggest, closest tree, set the decoy hard right and uphill a bit behind me, about 25 yards away, and sit. Yesterday, that one bird I heard gobbling had turned into 3, but I had not been able to connect with them. So I was thinking about it. I had either flushed one of those 3 gobblers or a hen, right? So there were at least probably 2 birds out there, 2 gobblers that still hadn't heard me or that I had bumped. The robin started first. The wind was higher than expected. It was cloudy. And the temperature was, only around 39 degrees. My hopes were not high, but the maple chair was comfy. I put my head net and hat on, thinking that somehow other turkeys may be close, and as the sun came up, I might not be seen. I pulled out my box call, set it next to me, waiting for but not expecting a gobble in that wind. The wood thrushes started to trill their musical song next. The trees swayed in the wind, and I had little hope. A barred owl called, not too far, but it felt distant in that hard north bitter wind. The ovenbirds started next. Teacher, 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 they sang madly and proclaiming their territory each spring. The chance to hear a gobble was low. Pow! Oh, nice. A bird was roosted and gobbling just across a big draw from me, directly east. A few minutes passed. Pow! Pow! Right on top of each other. I thought, man, 2 birds. Competitors for a hot hen, sweet. Always a good deal to have more than one boy coming off the roost in the big woods. The maple tree was comfy. It was cold and wet that May. I gave it a few seconds, counted between gobbles. The second bird only gobbled a couple times when the first bird talked. But over 4 consecutive sets, the gobbles were just over 50 seconds apart. So before he gobbled in about 50 seconds, I pulled the rubber band, an old piece of dish rag, out from underneath the box call between the top and the bottom so that it didn't make yelps when I was walking. And I gave a few quiet tree yelps. Seconds later, not immediate, pow! This was the type of response you would expect on a shitty weather day. Okay, 1 1,000, 2 1,000, all the way up to 51,000. This time it is a bit more hard tree yelp, but also a bit longer, but still quiet. Pow! Okay, we're getting there. We're controlling the conversation. In my head, I said to myself, patience. This bird is gobbling at you, but not too hot. No double gobbles, and the other bird is pretty silent, so take it easy. I left the silence for longer this time. No gobbles. 2 minutes. The same box call yelp as before. Solid for the distance. You'd expect the sound to travel, but not too aggressive. Slow response. Pow! But with that big woods echo. Oh shit, this bird is on the ground and covered about 200 yards when he flew down off the roost right at me. Gun up. Maybe 100 yards away, not sure, but it is getting light enough with the cloud cover and I can't get caught moving. So I set the box call down and put the mouth call in from my left pocket. Quaker Boy Triple Cutter has always been my go-to. I'm a hardcore Western New Yorker at heart, so can't do anything else other than the Quaker Boy. Orchard Park calls. Look, this is not an ad, but my dad grew up on them. And the family farm is in Eden, New York, not far from Orchard Park. And my grandmother's original farm that she grew up on was in Orchard Park. So they are my go-to calls. Gun up. Soft cutting yelp. Yeah, that's a thing, by the way. A soft cutting yelp. Pow! Distance cut to 80 yards. He is coming my way. Adjust the head angle and head net set to low and coming in hot. Check gun bead, head down, double check shooting lanes, all clear. Gave him the silent. Nothing. 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 Ugh, where is he? Ah, there he is, that big black ball coming up the hill. Never gobbled again. Went into a bunch of trees right in front of me, but I could hear him. Doom. 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 The coolest sound in the spring woods, that drumming tom. He doesn't come straight at me. I gave him a safe, quiet yelp, but the woods are open and I'm pinned. I couldn't move more because of that bird that I bumped 45 minutes ago. Pinned. Wide open woods, just towering oaks and maples between me and this strutting 2-year-old turkey. He is beautiful, but he is sidestepping me and looking hard. He came hard over the edge, but now he can see. It's wide open woods, and he is looking hard. Whew, nervous, both me and him. I can feel the tension in the conversation. He moves hard right at 50 yards through an opening. Nope. Struts behind a big red oak. He isn't coming anything closer than this. Spin now. I spun. Right shoulder pinned against that comfy maple, but now less balanced. Squint, bead, squint, bead. Whew, man, I'm not as young as I used to be, and I can't see quite well. Squint, bead, yelp, yelp. Head up, now or never. Pow! Bird down, run for him. Shuck that shell, run. Oh, dead and down. Whew. Oh, man, that comfy maple, The big red oak he went behind? If you know, you know. The trees I have shot turkeys from and with will live with me forever. This is, I guess, or was, a story about trees. Up next, how does the Midwinter Survey work and why are those numbers not comparable to the breeding waterfowl surveys? So please stick with us. Beckman Game Calls has it dialed in. If you want a duck call that is adjustable to your air pressure and sounds like a duck, this is it. I've blown a ton of different calls in my life, but this one is the real deal. Look, we don't endorse just anything. We are only going to put forward a call that works. The Edison by Chris Beckman of Beckman Game Calls? Yeah, this beauty sounds like a duck. I only know of one published research paper focused on what makes a duck call sound like a duck. Go look me up, and you will see that colleagues and I have the only paper published in scientific literature about what makes a duck call sound like a duck. For sure, Chris Beckman did his homework, and this call sounds like a duck. This guy knows how to make a duck call, period. But don't just take my word for it. Here's the proof. First, a hen recording, and then the Edison in the big woods of Arkansas. Visit them today at BeckmanGameCalls.com. The Farmland Group is your one-stop shop for real estate brokerage, consulting, management, lending, and appraisal across Arkansas, Mississippi, Missouri, Louisiana, Georgia, Tennessee, and growing. Contact them today at farmlg.com. Hey, I'm telling you, do not hesitate because these folks are busy buying, selling, and providing consulting and management strategies that build value into your portfolio on your land. So get in the queue today. Get on their radar. Get on their books. Man, y'all won't be disappointed. Contact the Farmland Group today at farmlg.com. That's farmlg.com. How many days have you had empty skies over the duck blind? Cameras full of deer except when you're there. Turkeys that just won't turkey right. Your property can be more with wildlife strategies. It is no secret that hiring a consultant, an expert in managing water, woods, and fields, an expert in duck foods and deer and turkey habitat, an expert in hunting pressure management. Well, it is no secret that hiring a consultant yields better habitat for the critters you chase. Less empty skies, more quality days of field, more smiles for miles with family and friends. If that's your game and goal, contact Ryan Delaney at ryan@farmlg.com for a site visit. And hey, here's the deal. I'm filled up for summer 2025 with clients up north, but if our northern friends have a property in need of some love, contact me at DrMike at FowlWeather.co for a summer 2026 site visit. The Midwinter survey data were not originally used as they are today. The first winter waterfowl counts occurred way back in 1935, and then irregularly after and prior to World War II when priorities shifted towards the war effort. After the war, midwinter waterfowl surveys were a way to put pilots and planes back to work for a different cause. But what was the use of these inventories? At first, they were actually used as the primary source of information for setting harvest regulations up until 1955. If you go back to episode 82, Is the BPOP Wrong?, you will learn that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Breeding Waterfowl Habitat and Population Survey, often referred to as the BPOP for Breeding Population Survey, well, the BPOP became operational in 1955, and midwinter inventories were shifted towards information focused on winter distributions and habitat use by waterfowl. But more importantly, Midwinter surveys catalog the abundance of waterfowl not typically counted that well during the BPOP survey, including geese and swans. These surveys also did well to index diving ducks and sea ducks that congregated on large lakes and along coastal areas during winter. But specifically, Canada geese, brant, snow geese, tundra swans, and sea ducks are often a focus of midwinter surveys because they are not counted as well during the BPOP survey. Also, with increasing numbers of trumpeter swans that were reintroduced into eastern North America, and mute swans, which are an exotic invasive species, the midwinter survey can give us an idea about the changes in these populations' abundances as well. That all said, H. Huysman wrote an independently authored paper for the journal The Wildlife Society Bulletin in 1999 entitled, "Let's Get Rid of the Midwinter Survey in the Atlantic Flyway." All right. Now, fun fact, I have no idea what H's real name really is, and he is now retired from the Massachusetts Department of Game and Fish. I worked with H when I was the Atlantic Flyway Tech Section rep for the great state of Maine. Even at that time, he was up in years. But even years later, after I moved around Mississippi State, Michigan, Ontario, New York, and then ended up back at an Atlantic Flyway meeting, there was H, still up to his old self. Much of the work by the Flyway had moved analytically past H, but he still continued to bring the Atlantic Flyway back to earth with great comments, maybe even zingers we could call them at times, and he had lots of perspective. And my respect for H is beyond that of some of the smartest people in the Fish and Wildlife Service and Atlantic Flyway Tech sections. H just had a way to see the entire picture with history at his side and worked to have the tech section see the light. Often he failed, overrun by statistical models, but the man to me is a legend in the Atlantic Flyway. He authored a good number of single author papers, and go ahead and look him up on Google Scholar. Get on Google Scholar, first of all, in their search engine, and then type Huysman Waterfowl, and you will see his work. It's Heusmann in Waterfowl, and you will see his work. Anyhow, lots of love for H and his independent, and I'd even say sometimes against the grain thinking. That said, I do think he was wrong to think that the midwinter survey should go away. We have to consider that not only did these data get used years later to answer all types of questions about abundances, distributions, and habitat use of waterfowl, many locations have actually expanded these surveys into the migration period to understand factors affecting variation in abundances of ducks, geese, and swans during that non-breeding period. Heck, the FowlWeather Podcast would not exist without these data that were used for initial development of the weather severity indices and algorithms that we reference so much. The midwinter surveys are conducted cooperatively by state wildlife agencies and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Migratory Bird Program. And over the years, areas have been dropped that folks just didn't deem important anymore. I flew for 3 years with the state of Maine as an observer with a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service pilot. Man, the best seat in the house for a view of the Maine coast. It was just awesome. A great pilot and a great plane, a twin-engine Partenavia airplane. It has been suggested that we could fly the BPOP or even midwinter surveys once every other year or even 3 years apart. I mean, do we need the data every year? Or maybe we could just use drones instead. First, here's the first one. Sure. From a cost-saving perspective, maybe we could fly less. But planes just can't sit around. They fall apart like a house not lived in. They're meant to be flown. Also, it's like having a construction crew, but only every once in a while you do a roofing job. So it's hard to keep your roofing guys sharp, or for that matter, even employed. Maybe it's possible to skip years, but I think we need to let the experts decide if that is possible. Mostly, given logistical difficulties of keeping planes tuned up and pilot biologists and observers at the ready, maybe it's not the greatest place to be to drop a bunch of years for this stuff. Anyhow, just some food for thought. Regarding drones, it just isn't possible right now. And we don't own military drones that fly long distances, like into the boreal. That is really where, a pilot and a plane is what works at this time. Not saying that it isn't possible in the future, but current standard operating procedure is flying annually to keep the planes running and with highly qualified pilot biologists and observers to ensure that we get it right. There have been several calls for more standardized methods for non-breeding period waterfowl surveys, including the midwinter survey. But the problem seems to be that each state or area uses surveys slightly differently for different reasons, and so it's hard to ask anyone all over the place in every state to do a standardized survey. That's why at the federal level, the BPOP survey is so well conducted because it's unified by the federal government. The midwinter survey stuff, each state seems to have a difference of opinion on what they need it for, and so it really has never turned into a standardized survey. Just a comment there of decentralizing some of this stuff for migratory birds. If we just give all this to the states, it really does reduce the potential for standardization and collaboration across jurisdictions. So just a quick comment there. But among the best survey model we have is Dr. Aaron Pierce's work from his doctoral research at Mississippi State University. This is basically the same methods that Arkansas and South Carolina are also using now. Dr. Pierce now works at the USGS Northern Prairie Wildlife Research Center in Jamestown, North Dakota, where he works on landscape factors affecting ducks on the prairies, information that is used in conservation planning for ducks. Anyhow, before that, he developed a survey that used transects across the Mississippi Alluvial Valley, the MAV portion of Mississippi, to understand what habitat types attracted the most ducks. This was used by USDA, NRCS, Natural Resources Conservation Service, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service partners in conservation planning to meet continental-level goals for wintering habitat for waterfowl. But he also designated the survey to be a robust and long-term monitoring tool for wintering waterfowl, whereby the numbers of ducks are counted on the survey transect area, and then that's scaled up to the entire MAV for each state. Because of Aaron's work, we've been able to use those data that Mississippi continues to collect right here on the FowlWeather Podcast to comment about seasonal changes in duck abundance in Mississippi and Arkansas along the Mississippi River. All right, an aside, this is a comment from the Jamestown Sun newspaper in Jamestown, North Dakota. Northern Prairie Wildlife Research Center is slated for closure under the upcoming federal budget. The center contributes $17.5 million to $25 million to the local Jamestown economy annually, an investment that would disappear. Upward of 40 full-time year-round employees would lose their jobs. Many of these individuals and their families will likely leave Jamestown in North Dakota, taking with them their expertise, community involvement, and economic contributions. Eesh. And from my perspective, we would lose some of the best waterfowl scientists and conservationists in the country. As a concerned and passionate duck person, please consider calling your representative and telling them to keep the USGS Northern Prairie Wildlife Research Center open and running. Okay, lots of other folks also do cruise surveys of wildlife management areas and national wildlife refuges coupled with ground surveys, or fly along maybe Mississippi river pools like Forbes Biological Station does, or along the Great Lakes shorelines. These are basically flights that cover all the area that ducks are known to exist and are assumed to be 100% surveys. That is, we count every bird, although we know we miss some. But given all the area that ducks distribute to, especially in warm years, there is no way to count them all. So what good are these migration and winter surveys? They give us an idea of the distribution and habitat use of waterfowl and are often used years later for detailed studies of migration or maybe energy needs on the landscape given a certain number of waterfowl typically using a specific location. They're also really good public relation tools for agencies because of all the "where are the ducks" comments nowadays with these warmer winters, birds staying farther north, and just mild weather that allows ducks to kind of be anywhere. But here's the deal. The BPOP is an index of the population that can be used in structured decision-making for waterfowl habitat management and conservation as well as season setting. But we shouldn't expect, because there are a lot of ducks or less ducks, for that to equate to a lot of ducks or less ducks over your blind. First, the BPOP does not survey everywhere that ducks exist. For example, Lincoln Peter estimates using banding data for mallards typically estimate way more mallards on this continent than the BPOP counts. Why? Mallards exist kind of everywhere and into lots of areas outside the BPOP survey area. Second, duck production really matters. So if it is a good production year, you might have a good fall flight. But if it is a poor production year, you might have many fewer ducks that can move south. And third, annual variation in weather makes a big difference in whether you have ducks or not over your blind. Also, let's throw in management of food at multiple geographic scales, your distance to a refuge, and local hunting pressure. So that is why the BPOP and non-breeding period surveys are apples and oranges. Folks should never try to find all the ducks from the BPOP in surveys during migration or winter, especially in mild years where ducks are kind of just everywhere they can be. You also shouldn't have an expectation too much of ducks in front of your blind using the BPOP survey alone because of all the information noted already here. That said, if we look at harvest per unit effort, we see a general trend of that harvest corrected for effort tracking with the BPOP. But there are a bunch of years when harvest is better than expected and a bunch of years when it is worse than expected. For example, there are 3 years in the recent past that had notoriously mild temperatures and very little snowfall to the north, and they have harvest well below what would be expected given the BPOP numbers. So here's the deal with migration and midwinter surveys. Their purpose has changed throughout the years, but they certainly have helped us understand non-breeding period waterfowl distributions, habitat associations, and how weather has become increasingly milder and ducks are often staying farther north for longer periods of time. That, and they are a great public relations tool for agencies to report to folks about duck numbers that will keep all the great people across Duck Country USA informed. All right, another good one. Keep track of us this summer while we run the FowlWeather Podcast Young Waterfowl Professional Series as well, where we meet and interview the next generation of waterfowl and wetlands conservation leaders. They are our future. Check out the episode last week with PhD student Corey Highway. We had a fun conversation about ducks, flooded corn, hunting pressure, and how a person ends up working in the waterfowl world. Thanks for listening. And as always, may your skies be filled and shoot straight, my friends.